Deepa ma'am, can we start, ma'am?
Start. Prarthana will be joining in 2-3 minutes, it seems. So
Sure.
you can start.
Yes, ma'am. Happy morning to one and all present here today, and I welcome you all to the 7th day of our Phase 2 induction program. I take this opportunity to welcome the Director, Professor T.J. Ramurthy sir of BNMIT. I also take this opportunity to welcome Additional Director S.Y. Kulkarni sir and our Dean, Professor Ishwaryan Mane, and our Principal, Krishnamurthy GN sir. As you all know, today is a session where you meet your alumni, your seniors, and welcome to the session on Alumni Connect. To begin the day, we have Sneha Prasad, who is going to talk on Make Money Fast, an interesting topic, I'm sure. Sneha Prasad is a computer science engineer specializing in distributed systems and networking, graduated from BNMIT and then in Cornell University. Worked at a bunch of companies. She loves theater, loves nature. Sneha, over to you. You can start the session and talk to our students. I'm sure it would be a wonderful and an interesting session.
Thank you, Praveen sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, namaste to TJR sir, Ishwar sir, and all of you. So thank you for coming, and yeah, let's just dive right into it. And Praveen sir kind of left out an important part of my introduction, which was if you feed me Anna Saru, I will follow you home. So kind of yes. So without further ado, let's jump right to it. Right. In light of all the craziness that's going on out there, um, and the hard situation that we are in, we have to sit in this talk, and you have to listen to me, and I have to talk. So, as Billie Eilish said, we will be okay one day if it's not right now. So we have to persist, and we have to move ahead, right? So yeah, with that, let's go and make money fast. Um, why I want to talk about making money is I think it's something in common to all of us, and all of us want to be able to make more than what we have right now. So yeah, that's it. Um, so when I started thinking about how we can make money fast, one of the first most obvious things is just ask people for money, and you can say, hey, please, I need like 2 crore rupees, can you just give it to me? And if somebody gives it to you, then it's the best thing that happened to you. So you have 2 crores now, and you can just like be happy, and you can go and you can just log out of this session and bye. But yeah, if it works, right? So the second thing is you can rob a bank. To rob a bank, you just need like a professor and a crew, and we already have a lot of professors at BNMIT. I'm sure you can ask one of them, and you just need to set up a crew, and there's plenty of talented people, so you can do that as well. So, and for detailed instructions, you can watch this series called Money Heist on Netflix if you've not already. So yeah, so that's that. And the third thing is, you can just become like computer science literate. Well, Duh. So let's bring all of the focus that we have right now on ourselves, right? So irrespective of where we are sitting or what's going on, how much internal marks, how much external marks, what your ranking was in CET, COMET K, and whatever else it is, right? Or if you um, beat someone in chess or not. If there is one thing that you know, that you inherently know, and that nobody can take away from you, is that you are smart. You are just smart. And if somebody says, go figure this out, you can do it. And if somebody says, go solve this problem, there will be no, you are just going to do it, right? And you just need to decide to use this smartness. And the only reason why you've not been able to do something is because you haven't decided to do it. So think about yourself and just kind of assure yourself that, yes, I'm smart. And now with that baseline, let's go forward, right? So there's a way to turn the smarts that you already have into money. And that's what this whole journey um, of coming into a professional course and learning and all of this, that's the whole journey. And that's what it's all about. On the way, you learn many things, but it's all about turning smarts into money. That's all, right? So I was going to add a slide of how much money people made, but you will just have to like Google it, I guess. Yeah, just Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all these people. Yeah. So let's pause here for a moment and say how to turn this raw intelligence into skills, right? So the smarts that you already have as a person, how can you go sell it into the world? How, when you approach somebody and say, hey, give me work or give me money, the thing that they're going to ask for is skills, right? Hey, do you know how to do this? Can you accomplish this? Can you write this code, or can you run this algorithm, or design this flow chart, or basically fix this problem, right? The only thing that you don't have right now is skills, right? So you need to find a way of turning this raw intelligence that you have into skills. And then and when we talk about skills, um, it's not just coding or such things. So skills is all of you, is the whole person, the whole personality. That is the skill, right? And there's the technical part of it, which is the ability to write code, or program in C, C++. I don't know what mechanical engineers do, or electrical engineers. All of these people, right? Whatever is the skill in your area of engineering. So that is the technical part of it, and there's the people part of it, right? So, so the people part of it is probably more important than the technical part of it, right? But to be a good people's person, you need to be very good at something, and then you should be willing to share that very good attribute of yourself with others freely, right? So that is skills, code and people. And the ability to share something freely is I think it's the most important human quality ever. So you have to give first. When I say give first, I mean it might be your time, it might be your intelligence, your patience, anything. Give first in any situation. Volunteer first. Say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? I'm telling you, if this is the finest piece of advice I have received, and it has helped me, and it has given me 10,000 fold, 100,000 fold, I cannot tell you how many ways I have gotten back what I have given. So, the first thing that you can do, if there is one thing that you can remember, it is to give first. Give to your teachers, give to your friends, give to your family, give to the society. Just give. Um, so that's with people, right? Once you have given something to them, you have an in with them. That now they are kind of obligated to give you something back in return, right? So give first and give it genuinely, full of heart, without any expectation. So when it comes to you, it's a surprise, and you know, the world, the universe will take care of you, right? Let's talk about the code part of things, right? When we talk about code, the reality of the world we live in is it doesn't matter if you study in PNMIT or Harvard or MIT or wherever in the world, right? Because all the intelligence, all the coursework, all the assignments, all the problems, all the solutions, everything is out there in the internet and everything is free. So it's up to you to now decide what kind of an engineer you will become. What will you learn? What will you do with this time that you have on your hands? What coursework will you finish? Will you do Harvard CS50? Will you master everything that is in VTU computer science curriculum? Will you master everything in electrical engineering curriculum? Will you, can you read about the latest research that's happening in mechanical field? Will you be the one person to know it, or will you not? Because it's out there and it's just free and sitting and available. It's for you to go and approach it and harness it, right? So remember, everything is free, and you and when we talk about everything that is free and all these um, you know uh, skills with people and all of those, uh, we need to step back and think about kind of something called niyat or work ethic, right? And this is not for anyone else but for ourselves, to become better version of ourselves every day, right? Sneha version 1.1, Sneha version 1.2, Sneha version 11,000, whatever. So each version needs to be better. And there are like three concepts that I have learned recently, but if these things I had known before, I don't know what could have happened, right? So the first thing is, you might all know this one. It's called 10,000 hours. So to be able to be good at something, you need to put in 10,000 hours of work, right? Um, Anything, and you have like 4 years ahead of you, 3 years ahead of you. So you can easily do 10,000 hours of anything. So I have friends, in computer science. My friend, he said the only thing I learned in my 4 years of engineering was C. And he runs a major team at Google now, because just by knowing C and knowing C well enough, he is able to translate that skill into many other skills. Just focusing very deep on one skill and just being the best at it will give you satisfaction and rewards like nothing else. And the second concept is deep work. This is a book I highly recommend all of you read it. If you have not already read it, if you have read it, please read it again. Um, it's about cutting out all the distractions in the world and focusing deep on your work, right? We live in a constantly distracted world. So just bringing all our focus onto our work. But because you guys are already sitting in BNMIT and you have done like 2 years of extreme hard work in first PU and second PU, and you've got like great CET ranks. That's why you're sitting here, right? So you already know all the ethics and all the discipline that it takes to uh, focus at that deep level of concentration. So you already know that. What I've seen is people who are brilliant, they forget it. They forget going through engineering and graduating from it. They forget how good they were. They forget all these skills that they have within them. So please don't forget the things that you already have. So keep them sacred, keep them alive and upbeat, right? And the third concept is atomic habits. Atomic habits are small habits that you can do every day, and they will give you like a lot of return. So yeah, these three things. Yeah, let's move on from here. One thing that if I could go back to my schooling and my engineering and just correct it, just fix something. If there was one thing that I would change, it's my fear of asking questions, right? Like every time I ask a question, I have like 1,000 filters in my head. What if somebody judges me? What if somebody thinks I'm dumb? What if somebody thinks I'm stupid? And every time that somebody else has the courage to ask a question, if I look at them and say, oh my God, what a dumb question, they couldn't even figure it out. So both ways, right? I'm trapping myself. One, if there is something that I don't understand, I struggle for hours trying to figure it out by myself. When it a simple thing as asking somebody else will help me tremendously. So first, don't judge other people for asking dumb questions, because you are harming yourself. You're saying, okay, oh, I will never be in that position. And the second thing is, don't be afraid. And it's not worth it to think of other people when you don't understand something. And especially when you kind of know but you don't completely know, and you kind of still convince yourself and say, okay, that you should stop. You should not like leave someone. Right? We had an intern a couple of years ago. He would eat our heads. Every half an hour he would come and say, I don't understand this, please teach me. I don't understand this, please teach me. We really hated that person, but in 2 months he became such a valuable resource. I can't tell you. So now when we don't know something, we would go and ask him, because he knows, he has information from everybody on the team, right? So we would go and ask him. So that was a transformation. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. Please, please, please ask questions. And one of the most important thing that I want you to think about is treat everything as a problem and get into that problem solving mindset. Because all of you are sitting in BNMIT, I will assume that all of you love math and have solved problems to a high degree of, with a high degree of success. So just continue in that mindset and think of everything as a problem that needs to be solved and that you have the ability to solve, right? So people go through engineering education, and at the end of it, they might not become engineers. They might become directors or actors or musicians or anything, but they become very successful, even comedians, but they become very successful in those fields because they have learned to think logically and treat everything as a problem, and a problem that can be solved, and that can be solved by them. So even let's say you sometimes you feel like I can't study, right? I hate studying. Why am I studying this? So even that is a problem. So think about how you can help yourself, what the problem is, how you can what advice you would give yourself. So that way, treat everything as a problem and solve it, right? And yeah, I have this very beautiful pink slide because uh, this is, I think, one of the top qualities that we are always looking in other engineers when we hire them. So curiosity is the top thing. It's admitting that, hey, I don't know something, and being vulnerable enough to ask someone or find help and understand it, right? So just as you advance in your path of learning, so this is going to be a very valuable trait. So develop it, hone it. Top skill, curiosity, top skill, right? And um, and whatever I said today might not be new. You might have heard it all before, but um, the thing is, every time every time that you make a mistake, or every time you come into a situation that you have been in before already, um, you have two choices. You can either evolve or you can repeat it. And whatever I have said today is accumulated knowledge over 10 years. So you may get it today or you may get it in 10 years. So the lessons are the same. And I have no doubt that the path that you've started on is the greatest one. It just depends on what you make out of it, right? So the lessons that life gives us are the same. You may get it today, you may get it in 10 years, but I wish you and I pray that all of you are in good health and you enjoy tremendous success, right? So good luck. This is my um, contact number, uh, and feel free to contact me, feel free to ping me, feel free to gmail me. And I've done a lot of talks, right? And I give out my phone number, I give out my email id at the end of every talk, but there are very few people who will actually reach out and ask, right? but uh, but the people who have reached out and who have asked, they have I like to talk about my junior called Suhas, who was sitting in just one of your chairs, and he said, "Hey, Sneha, I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job?" And turns out we were hiring. He came into our team. He was super successful in our team just because a session that Chaitra ma'am organized, or such things. So it matters. So feel free to reach out to me, ask any questions that you have, right? So I think that's my time. Now I will um, be okay and be open for questions. So yeah.
Dear students, if you have any questions, you can talk to Sneha.
Happy morning, Sneha.
Hey, NSV sir. Okay, how do I stop sharing and start my camera? Okay, done.
How are you, Sneha?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
God bless you. I heard your speech. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
And good to see you back to BNMIT, whether it is online or offline. We are so happy to see you.
Yes, I'm always happy, sir.
Yes, I'm sure the amount of lesson that you have learned through Kala Bhagirathi and the Nature Club activities, and of course in all other activities that we do in BNMIT has brought you to this level.
Yes, sir.
You have shared it aptly with all the students, and I just want to congratulate you that it was well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
God bless
Yeah.
you. Now open to all of us. God bless you, dear. I will talk to you later.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell me.
How are you, sir?
Hello, Sneha. Yeah,
Hello,
I
sir.
thought I wanted you to recognize my voice. That is
Yes,
why I
sir.
just stopped at the stage. I am so happy to see you online, offline, whatever. That is what Sej Prasad was telling. For
Yes.
the benefit of students, I want to share. Sneha was one of the excellent students the BNMIT had. And still, we have got a lot of interaction with her. And she was so much involved, not just in academic. It may be Kala Bhagirathi, like Shesh Prasad has told, or environment, everything. And I want to share with all my first year students. 2 years back, I was there in US. I gave one phone call to Sneha. I told, I am here. I want to meet you. She arranged a meeting, not only her, PNMIT alumni who are studying, who are working, everybody was there. About 40 students. I have got a good photograph of it in my office. And we had a get together over dinner. So I cannot forget that. It will be very nice for any teacher to meet our alumni and share thoughts and find the achievements of our alumni in various fields. So congratulations, Neha, that
Thank
you
you,
are
sir.
able to talk to our students.
Yes, sir. It's my.
I want to, anyhow, let it be known to everybody. There's nothing wrong in that. I will be in US in the last third week of July. I will be very happy to have a meeting like what we had.
Yes,
through
sir.
you or through your friends in the last week of July.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Let's looking forward to seeing you here.
Okay. All the best.
Thank you,
God
sir.
bless you. God
Thank you.
bless you. Right. So I have not found any questions from students how they have to plan to go to US, what efforts Sneha has put in. Let you take the experience that will help you. You are going to US or not going to US, it's different. You can ask what work she is doing and what is the expertise you should have to go to that profession or to go to that height. I want students to ask questions.
Congratulations, Neha, for the wonderful talk. I'm really happy to see you
Thank
again.
you.
And
Thank you,
I'm sure
sir.
students will benefit from your vast experience being an ex-BNMite and also a successful engineer in the Silicon Valley. I'm sure your thoughts and your preachings and lessons will carry a lot of weight, and they will be taken in the right spirit and stride and definitely benefit our current students. Thank you once again for the wonderful talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, students are hesitant. They're not asking as usual. I have a question, Sneha, for you.
Yes, sir.
That one thing take or the takeaway from BNMIT that has helped you to shape your career?
In terms of technical learning, I think there is one data structure. So there are two things. So in terms of technical learning, I think there's one data structures course in CS that I cannot forget that Divya ma'am taught us. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is just developing your personality through nature club, through Kala Bhagirathi, or to all the through interactions with other students and teachers and learning from their experience, right? So that I think has shaped me, shaped my personality. So yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I think blessings is what I've taken from BNMIT, and that has helped me.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
This is a first year student, and I just wanted to know, like, how was your plan from starting?
Starting. Is this Snigdha?
Yes, this is Snigdha.
Hi, Snigdha. So
Hi.
when you say starting, did you mean like starting of engineering or?
Yeah, starting of engineering. Like, how was your plan? I'm sure it wouldn't be like so easy for you to reach so high.
Yeah. So basically, when I started engineering, so one thing was that responsibility of my family was like upon 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 me, right? So I was like literally, trying to get through the 4 years so that I can start earning and kind of help my family. So that was always there. So to get a good job and doing that was always there. But one night I was just before my externals. I had not opened the Tenenbaum networking book at all. So one night before the exam, I was like looking at that book and I fell in love. I cannot express to you what kind of love that is. It's when you understand something technically and you just like really love it, right? So that was the day that I fell in love with networking, and I just got good at it just by reading everything in networking and studying, taking all the networking subjects. And that helped me kind of pitch myself when I got the interview for Cisco and getting that job through Cisco, and everything that happened to me later in life, like coming to the US. It was not planned. It was not on the cards at all. So my focus was only on learning, but I always knew that I had to get a good job as soon as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha, for taking out your time and talking to our students. I'm sure they will benefit from your, experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Moving on, our next topic is how to maximize the output in online learning. And to talk to you all, we have our alumni, Prarthana R, who is a logistics and operation engineer. She graduated from BNMIT in the year 2018 as a mechanical engineer with logistic experiences of warehouse operations and handling international clients across APAC and EMEA regions. On-site implementation of space optimization of warehouse and activity-based lotting at Singapore and Thailand and warehouse. These are some of her career experiences. She has worked with Novia Logistics as a logistics engineer in the past, and currently she is working as sales and operations planning analyst with T Connectivity India. Prarthana, over to you. Talk to our students. Prarthana, over to you.
Yeah. So is my voice clear?
Yes, Prarthana, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you for the introduction. Yeah. So before we start, I'll just before I introduce myself, I will share my PPT. So tell me when you can see it. Yeah.
We can't see it yet, Prarthana. Yes, it's visible. You can go ahead.
And also put all of this.
I'm sorry, sir. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
So, is it on slide mode?
Yes, yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so good morning, guys. So one second. Yeah. Good morning, guys. So this is so I'm Prarthana. So I'm a 2018 pass out. So before I begin with my introduction, at this point when the world is having such a big crisis, so I would like to know what type of mask do you guys wear? What kind of mask users are you all? So let's make it an interactive session. So let's not keep it boring. And I hope to hear your voice. So what kind of mask are you? Are you the type 1, type 2, type 3, or type 4?
Type 1.
Anybody can. Type 1 is it? Yeah. Even me, I'm the type 1. Initially, I was actually the type 2. Now that I have understood the seriousness and the effect of this COVID situation, so I'm the type 1 as well. So that's good. So moving to the next slide. So I would also like to tell you all that it's always better to wear a mask when you go outside, especially the double mask. At this point we would not know what impact does it have on us and our family, because it's invisible. So wear a mask when you go out, and it's better to wear a mask than to wear a ventilator, and always stay home at this point. Even if they have not put a lockdown, so I suggest you stay home until we get a vaccine, especially for this 18 plus. So yeah, stay at home. Moving to the next slide. Yeah. So yeah, I want to introduce myself here. So if you can see the left image, this is the 2014. I studied from 14 to 18. These are the number of girls in mechanical branch. So I am from the mechanical branch. So these were this was the largest number of girls in the mechanical branch. We were around six of us, and it said that in VTU itself we had the largest number of girls in this batch. So I would want to know at this point in mechanical how many girls are there? Anybody from mechanical?
The current batch, only 3 students are there, Prarthana. This is Jayana.
Oh, okay, sir. Yeah. Actually, I would like students to unmute their mic and speak up. So see, I'm just a 2018 batch two. I think it's not too long that I've passed out, and let's make it a friendly and an interactive session. And this in this early morning, I do not want to have a point where only I am talking and you all are listening. So right now it's 3. It seems like we were the largest. We were the batch with large number of girls. And if you can see on the right side, so these were the fun activities we had in the first year. I think once when the college reopens, you can also take part in all these activities. So I was part of the nature club event. Nature club event was really fun. It used to happen every week. So in the top image, you can see we had something called as walkathon. So we used to walk through Lal Bagh and Kaban Park, and it used to be really fun. In first year, if any event happens, we never miss it out. So this was a really fun event, and the event below was something called as uh, cycle rally. So the cycles were all the I took 2 months. I learned cycling and then I took part in this event. It was real fun. And after this, I have gone cycling for a very long distance, 30 kilometers cycling I have gone. So I think they have inspired me to a large extent in my life. So I think initial years in BNMIT, you should actually take part in every event and be a very interactive student, and also put some effort on your education as well. So as previously introduced, I am a 2014 batch. I'm from the mechanical department. So in this 2 years, I have first worked in Neovia Logistics. So practically getting a job in mechanical field is pretty difficult. I had a tough time, but I was successful in getting a job in Neovia Logistics. So that company, the thing is that when you tell your BNMIT students, some of them might not know, but people who know that the students are really disciplined, and they are really good at their work. So when I joined, I did not find it difficult to be in a corporate environment, because they have been so strict with us. So it was rather easy for me. And so I worked in Neovia Logistics. After that, so I did work for there for 2 years. In 2 years, I had got a lot of opportunities to explore. So I went, I was on site in Singapore, Mercedes-Benz warehouse, and I'd been on site in Ford, Thailand warehouse. So all these, I had a lot of projects to work on. So that way I gained a lot of knowledge. And after that, right now I'm working for TE Connectivity. So yeah, so that is my real work history post education in BNMIT. After that, yeah, let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so since I'm a mechanical engineer, I assume that the whole meeting was with mechanical engineers. Is there other departments as well? Can any students please speak up? See, there's no one to judge you here. You can speak up. I'm sorry, your voice is breaking.
We have got all the
Hello,
students
Prasanna.
from the first year.
Okay, so all the departments are here. So hopefully, I think this knowledge would be for mechanical. So I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So the first question is, I wanted to ask, do you all know who designed the world's first car? Anybody? If you don't know, you can Google it up. It's fine.
Carl Benz.
Yeah, you're right. So your name?
My name is Nigdashri. I'm of EIML branch.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, okay. Hey, that's really great. You got it right. That's great. And the second question, anyone recognizes this car?
Is it Rolls-Royce?
Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, right. You're right. So, what are your both names?
I am Anand from CSE.
I am Aditya from CSE.
And CSC people are answering for mechanic question. Great, man. I think guys generally like automobiles. It need not be the branch, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So don't call me ma'am. You can call me Pratna. I just passed out and I keep coming to college. So I don't feel like I've passed out. So yeah. So the thing is that yeah, that's right. You are right. So let's move to the next slide. So how do you guys really feel about online classes? I want to know. Does it feel something like the image? Anybody? How do you feel online class? It's okay. You can be open about it. Is it difficult sometimes because they are telling you something and you are trying to understand, and when there's no actual teaching front of you, how do you feel?
It's actually
Anybody?
nice, but for a longer period, we just feel boring, like sitting in front of a computer and studying. For some days it will be fine, but later,
Yeah, that's true. Sitting in front of the laptop all the time, it's quite hard. Anyone from mechanical? I'm not hearing any voices from mechanical. I'm serious. I'm actually surprised. Anyone from mechanical? Okay, fine. Let's move to the next slide. So I would want to know, see, these are the few benefits and disadvantages of online classes. So what I found generally was really useful for me. Even though I'm passed out from engineering, learning never stops. So after you graduate also, there's always continuous learning. So the thing with online, what after I passed out, I in fact involved more in myself into online learning. I use some online portals like Udemy and Simply Learn. So all these things you will learn new skills, and that will in fact help you to better yourself in your job and also gain promotions and get more opportunities. So why I went to online learning instead of going to classroom learning is like I found traveling really issue. So I used to travel from my house 24 kilometers for my job. So I found I can sit at home Saturday, Sunday and learn so many tools and actually get paid more if you learn tools, right? So I found there was no commute issue. For me, travel was a big issue after I graduated. And BNMIT was very close to my house, so travel was not an issue for me. Mostly for so many of you all travel. Like I had friends who used to come from RR Nagar, and they used to get really tired traveling. So if you really, and the best part is after the pandemic ends also, you would feel like tired traveling and you would find online learning much better. Sitting at home without traveling, you can actually learn something at your comfort of your house. So that's really good. That's a benefit of online learning. And you can manage time so efficiently by doing online learning. In fact, you can juggle up so many things. You can learn one skill, then after that skill, in the sense, I'll tell you my daily schedule how it goes. I get up in the morning. Then I'm learning. I wanted to learn a language, so I learned German language. Since German language is very useful for mechanical engineers, I get up in the morning. I have a German class. Then I log into my office. I do my office work. Again in the evening. See, in this pandemic time, it's hard to maintain fitness. It's always important to be fit, and it's really helpful for your mind as well. So I do your online. I do workout online. Imagine I work out online, and then again if there's anything that in the evening, if I want to chill, where can we go? I'll again watch some movie. So this is how my life has been, and it's like it's good that you can actually manage your time and learn so many things in a day. At the end of the day, you'll be happy that you were able to do so many things. And also comfort is really good over here. Apart from that, any of you all want to add some points? What are the benefits of online learning? Anyone? What did you find useful? Anyone?
it can be attended from anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. Location was not an issue. Let's add that point. Anything else? And if you want to do online and you do not have to like get up 1 hour early, I'll tell you my schedule. Do not have to get up 1 hour early, get ready, take bath. So this all I usually shift everything to the evening because I log out in the evening and I'll do everything in the evening. So that way I get up just on time for any meeting. So that way I find it really convenient. In fact, I can schedule all the meetings for my own convenience. That way, and that is really advantageous for me. So let's move to the disadvantages. So the disadvantage of online meeting is there's no personal contact. So since you all are in the first year, I remember in my first year I made a lot of friends, and we used to So since we have badminton court and table tennis, right? We used to always in the evening we used to go play, and I got to know so many people. I think first year students sometimes it's little it's a sad thing that you cannot meet your friends, you cannot know new people, you cannot make friends, and that's a disadvantage. But hopefully once the pandemic ends, you can meet your virtual friends on online. You can meet them in class and know them better. So that's there. And also individual attention. See, right now I'm trying to talk to so many people, so I'm not able to understand why you all are not answering. So I'm talking to a group, so I'm not able to address to each person on the other side, right? So that's an issue I faced. I'm feeling that's an issue. So apart from that, any other disadvantages you all have noticed? Let's add some points. Any other disadvantages?
Internet issues.
Yeah, right. I forgot this point. Connectivity. Connect. Especially that so many people have gone back to their natives, and in certain remote location we would not get that good connectivity. You're right. That's absolutely right. So any other point? I think you'll have a lot of disadvantages. You're just hiding it. Anyone else?
We miss out many activities.
Miss out on activities, is it?
Yeah, like the nature club and
Yeah,
sports.
right. Yeah, missing out on clubs, correct. That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's so important, when you think of college, what do you think? You think, actually, I'll tell you frankly, when I think of college, I think of my friends, and the time I spent in college was basically, I remember, was in canteen. Although our campus is small, but I still remember the canteen and the play area where we used to play. And outside, though, we can't even stand over there. They always tell us to move ahead. But these things which the college puts on you is actually helpful in the long run. Initially, I was really thinking, why are these rules? They don't make sense. But I think even if you when you join a corporate company, the rules also there doesn't make sense. So it in fact it gives you a sense of discipline, and to follow rules is very important actually. Yeah. So yeah, missing out on clubs. That's right. Yeah. So let's move to the next slide. Anyone saying anything? So, in the next slide, what according to statistics, how online learning helps. So, online learning it's set to have a retention rate of nearly 25 to 60%, which is more than the learning happening in classrooms. So, I can tell you from my personal thing. So, I did if so if you look up my profile on LinkedIn, you will find that many online courses I have done. So that in fact helped me to improve my performance in a job. So online course, whatever I have learned, so I get to choose the course, right? So I choose a good course which will increase my knowledge in the subject. So even when a teacher is teaching you, they'll teach you in such a way that images, when you see images, your brain captures it more. See, when someone is telling it to you, you would not understand. When I show animation, so that's why when you watch a movie, you'll remember the movie story way better than when you listen to something. So that's why the retention rate in online learning is more than classroom learning. That is what the statistic tells, and that's true. And also, if you see, as I said, most of the companies you go always give you like trainings. So any manager you report to, they'll give you a bunch of trainings. You have to do it. Apart from that, you can do other trainings also. So it's why do companies invest in online training? So it's said that companies' revenue increases 42% by investing on learning for their employees. So every company you go, you'll always have to log into something and learn. Learning never ends. So you think that you'll finish your degree and you're done with education. That's not true. So that's some of the statistics I would want to share, and that might help you to concentrate more in class. I think, yeah, that will help you to give more importance when someone is speaking on a meeting, so that I've seen a lot of videos where students are doing everything else other than concentrating on a meeting or concentrating on a class. So I think that this will help you to understand that better. And also moving ahead, see, so what do you guys think of online workouts? I want to ask you all. Any of you all are into any of these workouts where they teach you online? Anybody? Anybody else? Anybody are into online workouts? I think when I was student, I was not into workouts and all because I was playing a lot. So we used to play a lot of games and all. Like we used to play basketball and we used to play badminton. So we were not into workouts. Now that the pandemic is there, so online workouts, most of the employees in a company, or I think we can say IT people also do this. All of them are doing online workouts. So if you see the left side image, that is the person who is watching the video how the person is doing and actually replicating the workout. And right side is my yoga teacher. He is in Mysore and I am actually connecting online to the class in Mysore. That's the best part of online classes. You can connect anywhere, as she said. And also you can even if you're staying, there's students from US who are connecting to his online classes, yoga classes. And that's how complex can you see how complex yoga exercise is? That complex exercises he teaches online. So and it's fine. See, you can teach such complex stuff in online, and I'm not finding any issue with that when the instructions are clear and when the process is understood. I think you can try out anything online. This is out of my personal experience I'm talking. So moving out to the next video. So after I see such a complex process they're doing online, so I want to know how to have labs virtually. So now that the pandemic is getting worse, so vaccines is the solution. So I in the near future vaccines takes time. So now that you all have to learn something online as well in labs, because labs are very important for an engineering student. Application is very important. So how to have a lab virtually? So few of my suggestions are that you should have an animation that will actually explain the lab process, or a virtual demonstration. So a teacher to demonstrate the process in a lab so that y'all can note down the values and do the calculation. So that is one of the thing. And also do it yourself experiment. So you can go buy some things in the store and try to do it and find out the values. You can always calculate anything by buying some do it yourself experiments in the store. Also, I would like to ask your suggestion. See, you all will also have so many inputs. I know you all have a lot of inputs. And how do you think we can have labs virtually? See, this is not a situation that we can pass right now. So we have to learn how to live with it. So I want to ask you all, what is the suggestions you all give to have labs virtually? Yeah, I think CS students would not have an issue having labs virtually because it's a computer science lab, and since laptop is the best thing that we can have it online as well. What about EC students, and Triple E? So what do you suggest? How do we have labs online? EC? Anyone from EC? Electronics and communication? Anyone? Now that all the courses, I think courses are common for y'all. So I think y'all will have basically physics lab and chemistry lab mostly, right? Physics is very relatable actually. At this point, you can see physics all around and try to understand the concept. But when you go ahead in third year, I think third year by that time pandemic might have reduced, and then third year you'll have a lot of mechanical concepts. I think mostly that time you can come to the lab. Physics and chemistry, you can actually do it with animations, and also virtual demonstrations would be great because you'll have studied the same subjects mostly in second PU, right? So it's easier to understand right now. So yeah, let's move ahead to the next slide. So yeah, I think we have come to an end to this. It's also time up. Even though y'all were not interactive, I finished it for a large extent. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. See, y'all are not answering. You're not answering. Y'all are not asking any questions. You can also mail me. Take down my mail ID. You can mail me. You can connect to me on LinkedIn. So that's my username. You can search me, and then you can connect to me, and then you can, in case you need any jobs in future. See, when we are the same college in future, you need any job, I will definitely refer you. And also, apart this COVID times, I was sitting at home and I had certain videos which I had recorded long time. So I started a YouTube channel. You can check out my channel. So so it's a basically, I love traveling. So the job I'm into also involves a lot of traveling. So I have traveled to Singapore, Thailand. So in Thailand, I went when there was COVID. Actually, my company sent me when there was COVID. When I came back, I was quarantined. So that way, I like traveling, and so this is my travel channel. You can check it out. So yeah, let's move to the last slide. So thank you so much for your time and for the patience for listening to me. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pratana. Thank you for your time and talking to our students and telling them your experiences. I'm sure that would help and they might connect to you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Pratana. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sir.
Dear students, moving ahead for the next part of our program today, we have orientation on higher studies. We have got Shabnam Banu and Nagaraju from Manya Princeton Review for talk on higher studies. Ms. Shabnam Banu has been working as National Admission Head in Manya Education for almost 3 years. Her role is to get connected to students and give them guidance and support for abroad education pan-India. She is a computer science graduate from Hyderabad, from Osmania University, and has been working in the education sector for past 15 years. She is having more than 13 years of experience in abroad career counseling for helping students in building their bright careers. She has an extensive knowledge on all major country requirements for admission, service, training and development, extensive knowledge on human psychology which helps in dealing with students and deciding the correct career option that would suit their interests and talent. Her achievements are placing good profile students in top universities in their career field. She has a track record for giving correct guidance and support for students. Ma'am, I welcome you. And also I welcome Nagaraju ji. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for introducing me, Mr. Praveen. It was really a wonderful, introduction about myself. A very warm welcome to all the students out there. I wish that today we would be able to, give you a lot of support in understanding the overseas education concept, and the ones who are really interested to go for their further education abroad, what is the current situation, what we all are facing through this particular pandemic, and then how we could be able to take things forward. Probably we'll have a lot of more insights towards it. Just let me just try to share my screen, and you just hold on.
Ma'am, we can't see the screen yet. Ma'am, I think you're muted.
Ma'am, I think you are muted. We can't hear you, ma'am. Shabnam, ma'am? We are not able to hear you, ma'am.
Praveen, they are trying to share their slides and they are asking for 1 second.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Praveen, you can ask any of our students to share their...
Am I visible?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Is the PPT visible? Can anybody just give me a little heads up?
Ma'am, the PPT is not visible.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry for it is not visible yet. Okay,
No,
it
ma'am.
should be on. I think there's some problem with the net facility, what I'm facing over here.
Yes,
Just
ma'am, we
kindly
can
bear
see it
with me. You can see it now. Okay, thank you
Yes,
so much for confirming. Yeah. All right. That's something which we're just talking about is the mission abroad. Like already, I think Mr. Praveen has already given a bit of brief information about myself. So I'm Shabnam Banu. I'm the National Admissions Manager for Mania, and I come with a versatile experience of overseas education. So in short, today we can be able to discuss about various countries, whatever we normally focus on, and how we normally talk about the different kind of opportunities in terms of different specializations all across the globe. All this is something what we could be able to talk about, and then what kind of prerequisites are something what we need to looking forward for before starting to prepare for an abroad education. So what are the kind of prerequisites, and then how do we identify the right university for yourself, and how do we identify even which is the right country for you, right? Because we have lots of choices, we have different kind of countries who do give us kind of different specializations and stuff like that. So you need to know and understand that what kind of country you need to go and which university you need to do. So the shortlisting of the universities is very, very important, and you should not be able to land up into a different country altogether or into a different university altogether. So it takes a lot of effort for anybody to do a do a good university shortlisting, because basing on to your profile, you could be able to realistically look forward for nothing less than 20 to 30 universities. So in that also, how do you do the filtration of these university is something what I would be able to make you understand in this particular session, which will be helpful for you to do your own shortlisting of the university. And in case if you're finding some kind of a problem or a kind of understanding towards these universities, we are there to assist you. So let's try to take a little quicker look in terms of why do we need to go for an abroad education. First thing is that, so when I do my counseling session for my different parents and the students all across in pan India and abroad, they only talk to me about different types of specialization, what the students looking forward for, and what we lack in India majorly, and the kind of technology what they use, or the kind of flexibility of the technology what they have is quite advanced when we have to compare ourselves to. The next thing is the kind of global exposure what our Indian students need, and then how you could be able to compete ourselves from the others, and the kind of opportunities what are definitely there in terms of good scholarship for the rights profile of the student. I think that's something which is very important for you to know and understand how you could be able to compete yourself with. All right, so that's the major reason why we think that students need to definitely try to talk about abroad education. Now when we have to talk about different types of countries or the most popular countries for the students to go for abroad education, what we see is USA for sure, yes, then Canada, UK, Australia, Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, Singapore. So these are the most commonly spoken countries for the abroad education. But in case if you have a different or a unique kind of in different country altogether in your list of the your country what you want to travel, please do not hesitate to contact Mania, because we would be able to do for you your application all throughout the globe. So you have different types of experts in our organization wherein we could be able to help you out with different countries also. All right, so let's move on in terms of understanding the education system of the abroad education. The way we talk about the I think I request you to just mute your mic there for the others to listen and concentrate. Thank you so much. So when we talk about the education system in the various abroad countries, unlike in India for the master's program, basically we talk about 2 years of a master's program, isn't it? So in abroad also, when we talk about different countries like USA, Canada, Australia, Singapore, we eventually have 2 years of masters, unlike the same thing what we have with India. But UK is one unique country wherein you talk about 1 year of master. So the academic stretch of the process is only for 1 year when you talk about UK. But when you talk about the PhD program, I'm like master's followed by a PhD program. The PhD is minimum of 3 years, and it can be able to get extended up to 5 years. Okay, that's that kind of a stretch what we normally talk about our PhD programs. And let me even tell you very proudly that Mania do also application for PhD programs. So anybody who's even interested, or you are any of your known people are interested for the PhD process, we could be able to help them out for the PhD process too. So now understanding the degree requirements or the kind of scope of 2 years of your graduation in different countries. Let's talk about their prerequisites now. What do you mean by prerequisites in terms of their standardized test requirements? Now, standardized test is something which is the prerequisite parameter for you to be fulfilling yourself the moment you're stepping out of our country from India. So now, what are the kind of standardized tests? Now, when we talk about USA as a country for a master's program, we talk about taking up a GRE. Now, GRE is something which is a mandatory. So it is a prerequisite which is to be done by every student to get into US as a country. All right. Now, we talk about the other parameter of the IELTS or TOEFL. Either one of them can be able to be taken up. So you can be able to take up IELTS normally because this is recognized globally. I'm not talking only about US over here. I'm talking about globally it has been accepted IELTS. Now, there are certain kind of inputs what I can be able to have some kind of doubt from the students saying that is GRE compulsory now? Do you still need to do a GRE, or is it mandatory now because of this pandemic and things like that? So I would still say that GRE is one of the kind of a strong parameter. It is not only a prerequisite, but eventually since the pandemic, there are certain universities who are definitely wavering it off. But if you have a GRE, you would be able to compete yourself with the other students, because it is one way of showing that you are a genuine student, and then you are able to get your qualifications be mapped up with this particular prerequisite. So hence, we normally insist the students to do your GRE irrespective of whether the university standards require it or not, because that is one of the way of you to be getting shortlisted for the university. All right. So now GRE, is it recognized any other kind of in part of the globe, or is it only for USA? When we talk about the top universities, now the top universities is nothing but the top 10, top 20 schools of the world. So it is still stands one of the parameters for you to take up a GRE. So all the top universities, all the cream universities do looking forward for a GRE, and you should be in a position to take up IELTS, which is a mandatory stream, and for all the different kind of in countries for sure, yes. All right, so these are the kind of in prerequisites what is required for any master's students to go abroad. Now, let us know and understand, as we're talking to you, how do we do a selecting of a university? Now, the whole globe is open for you, right? Now, which university should I do? Now, say, for example, when you have done with your, 10+2, and then looking out for your universities, or you were trying to look out for your engineering graduation, from where do I do? Now, the whole probably Karnataka was open for you, or the whole India was open for you. And now you were trying to select which kind of university or college you should be able to take your admission. So it was such a kind of a tough decision for you. Maybe then it is definitely going to be an equally challenging thing when you're talking about for a different university all across the globe now. So it is not so easy. Now, say for example, US itself has more than 5,000 plus universities, right? Now, if you're talking about globally, then it is a different way of altogether. It's a different, ball game altogether. So how do we do your shortlisting of the university? So let's take a kind of an quick look of the decision, how you could be able to make your analysis in a smaller way, so that your shortlisting of the universities can be narrowed down to. The first and foremost thing what I always request the student is stick on to your field of study. Now, what do you mean by field of study? Okay. Now, the field of study is nothing but you're talking about your next parameter for your master's, wherein if you're coming from the wing of computer science, try to stick it to the same field of computer science itself. If you're talking about electronics and engineering students, I would rather recommend you to take up only your electronics and communication or electronics and electrical engineering department itself. Don't try to make a different swing of your master's program into a different field of study altogether, because that will fetch no results for you in terms of your admission process, nor for your visa or for your brighter future. Yes, you're most welcome in terms of taking a different field of academics when you're targeting for any kind of business schools, or you're targeting for some kind of a different field of exposure altogether with a different specialization under the business schools. So that is that what do you call that kind of an deviation from your course is probably a wise decision to make, but not from your different stream to stream. Now, civil engineering cannot get into a computer science engineering, or a kind of a shift from one role to another role in terms of your department to department. So that's something which is going to be little irrelevant for your change of field. All right. So now the next thing what you need to do is when you're doing the shortlisting for the university, try to know and understand your career goals, because that's very important, because you're spending in so much of investment for your master's program. So make sure that what kind of a return of investment are also being granted by the university for you, because at the end it is return of investment what you need to talk about it, because you're investing your time, you're investing your money, and then you're investing your efforts in terms of being away from your family, and then you're making your goals very straight away in terms of it should have some kind of an return of investment also for you. Okay, so that is one thing what you need to definitely emphasize on. The practical experience is something which is very important, because the kind of an different universities have the kind of an modern kind of technology which has been used in the labs and things like that. Try to take up the university which has more towards the research kind of phase, because they keep on doing something or the other in terms of the research labs, and they are being equipped with the advanced technologies. So that's something what you need to always keep in mind when you're doing the shortlisting of the universities. The most important key factor is when it comes to the parents. For me, it goes like you need to take up a financial assistance. So scholarship plays one of the major concept in doing the shortlisting of the university. Now, say for example, if you want to do a shortlisting of the university, like saying which university gives me the maximum kind of scholarship, then you need to know and understand that your shortlisting of the university should be going with the with the possibilities of taking up the financial assistances. That's the one way of doing the shortlisting of the universities. Of course, when it comes to the safety, I always guide my students is try to take up the universities which are in a more populated area. Do not take it up wherein you have the universities in a very dim location, or you don't see any population, or you don't get any kind of part-time jobs there, and then you just need to take a university for the heck of taking it. Is rather not to go to those universities and stay back in India, and not to make sure that you're getting into any kind of racism also there, because you're being aloofed, and then you don't really see some kind of movement of people around there, and then it becomes very homesickness for the students, and then you try to come back to the country. So all these are the different ways for us to do the shortlisting of the universities. So let's try to take a little quick analysis in terms of whatever we just spoken about in doing the shortlisting of the universities. First and the foremost is your curriculum. That's nothing but your study from the field of your department or the specialization what you're coming in from. Try to focus on that particular department itself, and then you need to start looking out for what kind of research or what kind of faculties are there in that particular university. Then the return of investment plans or the ranking of the university, and then the tuition fees, how much it costs, and then what kind of an attractive bursaries or scholarship that university is offering you. Last but not the least, the location preference is again very important for you. So these are the basic and the kind of key factors for you to do a shortlisting of the university. All right. So let's move on to the typical kind of master's program, what we normally get to see with different countries altogether. Now, when we have to say what country is the best for me, or what kind of a country should I be able to focus on, because I'm coming from so and so department, or I'm coming from computer science, or from electronics, or maybe from chemical engineering, or I'm coming from an mechanical stream engineering. Okay, so you will start analyzing things in such a way that which country should I move on to, right? So here are certain examples what I want to give you in the countries. The analysis shows that USA is the most preferred kind of a country for all the international students. The reason being is the variety of choices of the specialization courses what they offer as a country, the kind of PhD programs which have been offered in the particular country, and it's a kind of a dream come true for every student or for international student to get into USA. And US is very flexible even with the tuition fees. So you have different types of universities with the different variation of the tuition fees. So it becomes very easy for all the international students, depending on the pocket size, how you could be able to get into the different types of universities altogether. So that's where we say that almost around 80% of the international students go to USA, and then the remaining 20% of the international students are being moved to different types of countries altogether, right? So when you talk about Canada as a country, it's more for life sciences. I mean, like, if you're talking about pharma, if you're talking about biological sciences or biomedical engineering, so it's pretty good in terms of the academic records or the kind of an MNC companies what you have there. I think is more towards those particular segments. Having said that, it's more for the STEM program also, along with the MBA. So it is a kind of a mixture of almost all the kind of courses out there. I think that goes pretty well with all the other countries like Australia, or even for that matter for Singapore. All these are the kind of prerequisites of the kind of courses and all that. But when we come to talk about Germany as a country, Germany, the first thing I think the hooter should be going for all the mechanical students out here. If I'm having any of the mechanical students sitting out there, the first thing what comes to these students is Germany, because Germany, the universities or the kind of equipped kind of in technology or the hands-on kind of an exposure what the universities try to give on the courses of the automotive or the mechanical engineering courses are pretty good. And then it is a hub for all the mechanical engineering students. The kind of an opportunities what the different companies offer for them is pretty good. I think that's with the reason why all the mechanical engineering normally prefer Germany as a country. When we talk about Europe, it's very good when you have to talk about architecture, because architecture is pretty good with Europe, or anything which is related to fashion designing or fashion technology. All this comes under for Europe. And then UK is very similar to USA, because it has all the specialization of the STEM program, and it is the financial kind of an hub when you talk about UK. So it is very good with finance and economics kind of a stand of a psychology. So these are the kind of typical courses what UK normally is known for. So now you have the fair understanding of which country to be taken, and then which universities, and then how you need to do a shortlisting of your country and the universities. So let's try to take a little bit of understanding about what kind of programs can one honor you with your master. So we have what we normally see is computer science engineering, then electrical engineering, masters in mechanical engineering, aerospace, biotechnology, biomedical. Then we have MIS, that is nothing but management information system, engineering management, and then pharmacy. Now the students who feel that I'm done with my engineering, okay, or I don't want to take up any more specialization with my same engineering stream. I'm sure there will be a lot of students who would be definitely in the same feeling. Nothing new. Let me just clear it out because it's a very common kind of feeling what you can be able to get through. So you can be able to take up some kind of deviations in the course that I was talking to you in the beginning. So I think the deviation can talk about management information system. That's one of the deviation again. Then you have engineering management. That's again a deviation. Then you have MIM, okay, Masters in Information Management. These are the again different kind of deviation. Or you can take up anything which is related to international business or international marketing or entrepreneurship. All these are the kind of deviation of the courses what any engineering graduate can be able to looking forward for. All right, in case you don't want to get into your own stream. Okay, so now when we talk about going for abroad, now when should you push in your application, or what are the kind of different intakes or the entry points, what we normally call them as, from the different countries altogether. So we have two entry points, or we have two different intakes of every country. Now say for example, when you talk about India, India has only one take. That's nothing but your fall intake. Now what do you mean by fall intake? It's only the month of from July to September. So normally our engineering colleges start up in this particular period, right? We finish our examination of the 12th standard, and then we start up with a new curriculum in the month of July, or stretch till August, September. Our classes normally start up. So July, August is a kind of a time frame what we normally follow. In the similar way, every country has these different timelines of the start of the curriculum. So that's called as fall intake, and the other one is called as a spring intake. Now fall is basically from July to September, as I told you, and spring normally comes between January and February. So every country has these two intakes, basically minimum kind of requirements. But we normally insist our students is to go for a fall intake. The reason being is almost all the countries are open, and almost all the universities are open for your requirements and specializations, and then for the good bursaries also. So that's the kind of intake what you can be able to do with this particular fall intake. So let's move on. When should I start up my application process, or how much time do I have? Or your question can be, is it too early for me to start up, or am I too late? So all your questions are being answered on this particular slide. And a basic minimum time requirement, what we talk about is for a good timeline to be processed is 1.5 years of your planning in advance. Now, say for example, if you're in the third year student, that thing you're in the right foot of the time frame to start up with your process for your abroad education. Or if you're a second year student, it is even more good for you to start planning for your further education for abroad from the second year itself. So do not think that it is too early or it is too late in terms of, for the fourth year students to start and take it up. So it all depends on how you're able to schedule yourself. So the ideal time frame is from second year to the fourth year is the kind of a thing what you need to do. But if you're having a planning for any different universities, or you have already made your goal for getting into these universities, the second year students have to talk about more in terms of the profile building, because you get ample time to build your profile. But if you're taking a last decision in the last minute decision in the fourth year, you don't have much of time to make up your profile. So you would be able to only talk about how I should be able to crack my GRE score, and then how I should be able to do my IELTS, and then immediately do my shortlisting of the universities. All right. So the understanding is you need to give yourself time and stress for doing a test taking. That test taking is nothing but your GRE and then IELTS. Okay. Then your shortlisting of the universities happen. Then you are sending your application form to the respective universities. Then the admission decisions normally take at least 2 to 3 months to come down. And then you start preparing for your visa. And then that's your pre-departure session along with Manya, what we could be able to get through with us. So that's your journey altogether. Now we have seen how to do the shortlisting of the universities. We have seen how to do the shortlisting of even the countries altogether, and when we should be able to start our application process and all, right? And what are the prerequisites? Now, after doing all these things, will my admission be shortlisted by the university or not? Or what are the kind of requirement what the university normally look forward for, right? So these are the kind of parameters what the university looks in your profile to be giving you an acceptance of the offer letter. Okay. So what are the prerequisites? As we have already discussed, that you need to do a GRE or you need to do a TOEFL or a IELTS. So that's a basic standardized kind of a requirement what any international university will have. Okay. Along with it is your bachelor's level grades, nothing but your percentage of your marks in your graduation. Okay. These two things are something which are still in your hand to do it, right? That means you are, say for example, you are in the third year or in the final year, you have nothing to do with your percentages anymore, because you're already done and set with your percentages. You cannot change your percentages or your CGPA, right? That's been freezed. Now, what is that you can be able to do to improvise your profile is you can do a improvisation of your profile in your GRE score. Now, GRE score, you can still be able to write it, and then you could be able to achieve a good score, because that can be changeable, right? That can be achieved. Your bachelor's level degree cannot be achieved again, because whatever is already been said and done is already said and done. You can still be able to work on your GRE and IELTS score to build your profile. The other parameters what the university is normally looking forward for is what kind of a project this the student has done, what kind of an internships has this particular student done, what kind of research papers the student has actually worked on to. All these are your achievements. All these are your unique achievements, what you as a student are portraying it to your respective admissions faculty in abroad education or for the abroad universities. All right. And then how you define yourself with all these achievements is nothing but your statement of purpose. Your statement of purpose is something wherein you're talking about how you're able to make sure that you are able to portray about yourself in a scripted form. So this is one of the important document called as statement of purpose, which is a mandatory document for all the universities, because this is the way how you're able to express yourself or you're presenting yourself. Now this becomes the heart of the application. Okay, I repeat my statement. This becomes the heart of your of your admission process, because you're able to talk about yourself to the admission officer is through the statement of purpose. Now, if you do not write it or you do not script it well, then the professor will not know only who you are. He will only see your graduation marks, he will only see your GRE score and TOEFL score. And if you are achievable, then in what way are you in the competition of lakhs of application which is there on his desk, right? So this is one of the way for you to be qualified on this particular admission process. So, and then the other document which is very important is your letter of recommendation. So the student has got the letter of recommendation from whom? Either from your HOD, from your principal of the faculty, or any other kind of an letter of recommendation what you could be able to present it on your behalf. So who are the ones who could be able to recommend you? It is an honor if your professors are able to recommend you for your further educations abroad. So feel blessed, and then you need to be able to give them a kind of an understanding of saying that you need to be recommended by this kind of professors. So it is a privilege that your professors are giving you a letter of recommendation to go for your higher education. So that's the kind of a privilege what you as a student also need to keep up that particular privilege with your college authorities, right? And then last but not the least is your extracurricular activities. And in this extracurricular activities, you can do ample number of things. Now, all that list and details can be provided to you by Mania, and we can be able to even sit and discuss based on profile to profile how you could be able to build your profile. Now, when we talk about building the profile, I'll come to one more slide in terms of how you could be able to build your profile again with Mania, right? So now understand and know that then in the abroad education, there are two different types of universities. You need to know and understand the awareness of public university versus the private universities. It is unlike in here in India. So you need to know and understand how it is in the public universities, because public universities are more preferred for abroad education. The reason being is they have been funded by the government, and they have low tuition fees, and they have a lot of research scope because they are the ancient universities, and they have the latest equipped kind of in technology what they normally use. So, and the seats are ample in number, and the choice of getting selected is quite easy when you have to compare with the private one. So just go through the kind of description between the public versus the private out there. Now the next question what I get to hear from the parents and from the students is, can my son work there, or can my daughter work there for some kind of part-time job opportunities and all? The answer is yes, but only thing is get it very straight of your students is you can be able to do a part-time job is only for your living expenses. And if you are under an impression that with the help of this part-time job opportunities you can be able to fill your tuition fees is out there, that's absolutely incorrect. So you can be only on an wages of your per hour kind of a thing, which will only be able to help you with your living expenses, just like your eatables, then your room rents, and then your electricity, or your transportation and all that is just for your lifestyle, then nothing else beyond that. So for your tuition fees you definitely have to make your financials being ready and prepared to give for your tuition fees. All right, so the answer is this. So you're able to, I'm like, every country normally you are being permitted for working for 20 hours per week, and that's the normal standard kind of experience what every country honors for every international student out there. As I'm talking to you about the internship programs or building your profile, very proudly I can tell that Mania is being associated with one of the company wherein all the students of Mania and the associated college or the associated kind of wings, whatever we have as a flagship towards Mania, like your college, the students are being given this opportunity to make use of these international internship program, wherein you are being put forward with the top 20 schools of the world ranking, basically from US and from UK, wherein you get to network yourself with these professors of the top schools. Now you get to have an opportunity to even earn a letter of recommendation from this particular professor, which will be helpful for your admission services for the abroad education, unlike the similar way you're doing it with your HODs or with your faculties to take a letter of recommendation. So this is also one of the equal opportunity for you to take this letter of recommendation from the top university professors also. And the best part is you're able to do a internship, or you're able to do a project work or a research proposal work under the guidance of their research. So it's an honor if you're able to be associated with such kind of an top universities professors. Now let's take a look of who these professors can be. The first professor, if you see, he is Dr. Peter Kemperthorne. He is basically a MIT professor. All right. So you may be able to get an honor to work along with him. Or if you see, the other professor is coming from Yale, from Columbia, then from Yale or from Surrey, and then from NYU. Then you have from Tufts University, and then there are so many more from UCLan, UCLA. Then you have from University of Michigan. You have from University of Stanford. You have it from Harvard. Then you have it from Oxford also, and then from Imperial College London. So there are so many top university professors who are on board along with us, and then who can be able to be given a choice or an equal opportunity to work along with these professors to build your profile or to build your resume. And that will be a kind of an achievement wherein you could be able to showcase on your profile when you're talking about your abroad education. So this is one way of making your profile little unique. All right. So now, why do you need to choose Mania? So it is a kind of a journey what we have been doing it from almost around more than 20 years right now, and then we have been working along with so many different types of schools, as well as with different kind of engineering colleges, and then we have been spreaded all over India with almost around 47 centers, and then we have been globally recognized also at the same time. And then we are one of the partner university with partnered business partner with Princeton Review, wherein you could be able to talk about your GRE coaching along with us, as well as with the IELTS, because we are also associated with British, what do you call? I think we are also been registered with British Council, as well as with the IDP Council also for your IELTS. So that is something which is a kind of a remarkable achievement along with us. And our advisors are certified advisors, and then these advisors can be able to help you identify your profile, and they can be able to place you with the right university of the ranking, irrespective of the kind of an what do you call, our own partnered university. So it's nothing to do with our own partnered university what we would be able to push your applications to. If you are able to get your admit in the top 20 school, then the certified advisors will not stop in terms of pushing your application to these particular elite universities, because the journey or the career of the student is important, and then we understand it. And very proudly I can tell you that we do have a top 20 admits university grant for our good profile students. All right. So when we talk about our services, we talk about in terms of the honor what we try to give to the student is in terms of doing the profiling, and then the shortlisting of the universities. Then we do the test preparation like your GRE or the IELTS. Then we do the shortlisting of the university. Then the essays editing. Now the essay editing is nothing but the SOP content writing, because as I told you, that's the heart of your application, and it needs to be written very crisply. It needs to be written very accurately about yourself, because that's something which is going to make sure that that's a difference in your application altogether. We also talk about how you need to prepare for your interviews if it is been asked by the university or for your visa officer. And then last but not the least, the pre-departure orientation. And all of application process is being processed through a very systematic, TAT-oriented kind of a process-driven application process with the admission team. And everything has been documented, everything has a TAT, and it comes out in a very unique with a different login and ID and password, which would be very uniquely been given to the respective student and the advisor altogether. That's how it goes. So the services what we don't offer, just try to make sure that certain times people are in the myth that the application fees is also being bared by the consultant. No, it doesn't happen like that. Everywhere, wherever there is an application fees of the respective university, that has to be bared by the student, and the visa fees has to be bared by the student. How you need to write your application forms and all, everything has to be done by you, because it is your application, and then you are supposed to be responsible for filling out your application forms, because you need to know and understand what kind of a course are you applying in, and how you are writing your application form. That's very mandatory, because you need to do your signatures on your application form. That's very important. So As I told you in the beginning of the session or in the middle of the session, is you cannot change your GPA or you cannot change your CGPA. What is that you can be able to change is your GRE and your GMAT scores basically. So, and then you can be able to get a good score out there to make your profile jump a bit in terms of your qualification for getting the top admits. All right. So I think that's the end of my session. Now, if I have any questions out there, I would be rather very happy to answer you all.
Yes, ma'am. I have unmuted the students. They can talk to you now.
Yeah, sure.
Student, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and talk to ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Do you, besides the GMAT, can we also write the SAT to get admissions in abroad universities?
For GMAT?
No, besides GMAT, can we write SATs?
SAT, yeah, no. SAT is basically for the undergraduation students. Since you are going for your master's or for an MBA program, so you need to do your GRE and GMAT.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, students? I think you can just be open enough in giving me certain feedbacks also. How the session was it useful for you all? And how did you feel about, the abroad education? If the ones who have not yet started, thinking about it, I think it's an opportunity for you to start thinking about this particular lines. Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah.
This
Good morning.
Session was really great. And I had a question. Are we eligible to get full scholarships like the entire tuition fees? A few colleges give those to students, and are those available to international students?
Yes, they are very much available for the international students, and very proud to say that we do have students who have been granted full scholarships also. But it is very much important that the profile of the student is also equally good. All right. So it is not that you just push your application to get scholarship and then you won with the scholarship lottery. No, it's not like that. So you need to earn that scholarship, and to earn the scholarship, it is basically you need to build your profile also that strong that you are getting your full honored in your scholarships also. So you need to have a very good GPA. You need to have a very unique profile altogether to get such kind of scholarships. Okay, so it is a dream come true. Let me be very honest with you, and it is not so easy also at the same time. But having said that, it is not saying that you will not be able to even get through. The only thing is you need to definitely start your journey towards getting into the scholarship system is right from your career start with your engineering. All right, so that's how you should be able to build your profile. So academics is very important. So your engineering, whatever you're doing now, you need to be very good with your GPA also. So you need to study and work hard. I hope that answers your question. So yeah, any other questions?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Shreyas, and my question was, what would be the base necessities to avail a scholarship?
I was just trying to mention the same thing. The base would be in terms of your merit scores. That's something which is very important, your GPA. And then your prerequisites, that is for your GRE or GMAT. And the next thing is the overall profile. Now, the overall profile has lots of parameters. Now, if you have to simplify it out in terms of the parameters, would be that you need to be an all-rounder in your application form, wherein you should be in a position to have done some kind of good noble causes for the mankind, and then you need to have some kind of an awards or bursaries with the national level, some kind of an achievements to show through, and you should be in a position to talk about your achievements, wherein you are being socially involved, or you have done a lot of NGO services, or you have done some kind of good internships, or you have your research proposals been done. And that's how you are going to fight for yourself, saying that you have a unique profile when you have to challenge for all the other international students applications out there for you to get a full scholarship, right? So that's how it goes. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, thank you
Yeah.
so much for a wonderful session. I hope those were the questions from the students. Thank you for talking to them and guiding them regarding what are the preparations that they have to do and how they have to look at the abroad venture that they would be doing after their 4 years probably. Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. On behalf of BNMIT, I take this opportunity to thank the Manya Princeton Review, Shabnam Banu ma'am, and Nagaraju sir for this wonderful, wonderful topic and the talk. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for honoring us. Yeah.
And my dear students, I would be sharing the feedback for today's session in the chat box. Yes, I have shared the feedback link. You can all go through with the feedback and give your valuable feedback. And I also thank all the professors from BNMIT, those who have joined today's session. And I also take this opportunity to thank the director, Professor TJR sir, additional director, Dr. S.Y. Kulkarni sir, our dean, Professor Ishwarian Mane, and our principal, Krishnamurthy sir. And I also thank all my students for attending the session. See you tomorrow at 10 o'clock for the next session. Thank you all. Thank you for joining.